On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, $200,000 on water physics? Apparently, there's a team of at least 20 engineers working on dynamic hurricanes, flooding and tides, and surfing mechanics. The prison guard debate.
Well, the reason he knows him is revealed within the trailers, because he is, in fact...
And a trip to the Grassrivers.
The existence of this area was first mentioned in Grand Theft Auto 4?
It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Welcome to episode 88 of GTA 6 o'clock, the world's most in-depth and best connected GTA 6 show. And after dispelling all the rumours from Gamescom last week and giving you our thoughts on the pre-order dates, we are here today to talk about a few more facts, in inverted commas, which are being thrown around, and taking a trip to the untamable jewel in Leonida's crown. I'm your host, James JJ Jarvis, and joining me with a backpack and gator bait in his hand is Dan DD Dawkins. Hello, Dan.
Ahoy there.
So, 258 days until launch, Dan. Excited?
It's basically here. I'm already playing it mentally.
Yes. But before we get to that point, today we're going to take a trip, as I said, to the Grassrivers in Leonida. The official description of this location is "Welcome to the wetlands, the untamable jewel in Leonida's crown." You never know what lies beneath the surface of this primordial expanse. The gators may be the most famous attraction, but there are far deadlier predators and weirder discoveries among the mangroves. Important to note here, I think before we kick off this show, then, that these are alligators and not crocodiles. Do you know the difference between an alligator and a crocodile, Dan? We have discussed this on the show before.
Yeah, but I remember, but I'm testing you by throwing that back.
Right, well, I would say, from some research that I'd done, that the biggest difference is their snout shape. Alligators and crocodiles look similar, but alligators typically have a broader, rounded snout with a U-shape appearance, whereas crocodiles, the ones that we are not seeing here, tend to have a narrower and more pointed snout with a V-shape appearance. So there's some facts for you. The good fact is the American alligator, which we are seeing in some of these screenshots, or we will see, and these are the animals that live out here in the wetlands, can reach lengths of up to about 10 to 15 feet. So they are big guys. Also to note that it was alligators in Red Dead Redemption 2 that we saw as well, which probably helps with some of the modelling and AI techniques that they're using, because they can probably just port these over from Red Dead into GTA 6, because I don't think alligators have changed that much in their appearance since the 1900s.
Oh, well, no, I'm not aware of their lineage and genealogy, if that's even the right word.
Oh, they're dinosaurs, essentially, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they've been around forever. Well, not forever.
But long. Let's not get into the relativity of the universe, but yeah, quite long.
The only other thing that is mentioned in that description then is a mangrove. Do you know what a mangrove is? Are you going to test me again?
Yeah, it's best I test you and you don't test me.
Well, it's a tree or a shrub which grows in tidal, chiefly tropical coastal swamps, having numerous tangled roots that grow above ground and form dense thickets. Essentially, it's a big swamp land with trees growing out of it and all of that kind of stuff. Mangroves provide essential habitat for thousands of species. They also stabilise shorelines, preventing erosion and protecting the land and the people who live there from waves and storms. In real life, the wetlands are, of course, the Everglades in Miami. This is on like the southern point of Miami and is the area you sort of go through to get to the Florida Keys, although a lot of the Everglades is like to the middle and the west of that landmass of Miami. Now, you know I love a mystery and a speculation theory, so here's something I would like them to put in the game, which I don't think we've talked about before, but just in case. It's the lost city in the Everglades. Now, apparently, no one knows for sure the exact location of the lost city, but it's said to be someplace deep inside the Everglades. One thing they do know is it was once a village that was abandoned, and these days it's completely covered by vegetation. There are no maps leading to it. And you want to know what else? Rumor has it that it was the lost city that mobster Al Capone supposedly produced his moonshine here. So, put that on the map. That can be a thing we can find in GTA 6 for sure. The lost city in the wetlands.
Yeah. Do I believe Al Capone made his moonshine there? I don't know. Do I think it's a great idea for this area? Yeah, very much so. Because, like, as we'll get into when we go through the screenshots, on a surface level, it's quite a large landmass, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a big part of the map.
So, like, for it just to be a load of mangroves and alligators, I would suggest would be a little bit boring. So I think and that's me being naive, but on surface level, it's a bit boring. So to have something like that within it, where almost the point of it then is it's really hard to navigate and big and everything looks like everything else, would make it a more interesting place to hide things.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing we've talked about before, with especially the description being weirder discoveries among the mangroves, which I think is a hint towards this is where you're going to find a lot of the interesting characters. We've also talked about this place in real life being a hub of speculation for shipwrecks because it's right on the coast, and ghosts and lost treasure, all of that kind of stuff. This place feels primed for those kind of mysteries.
Yeah, so before we move on, a bit of trivia around Grassrivers.
More trivia? Love
it.
A
bit of trivia. I didn't realise this, but the existence of this area was first mentioned in Grand Theft Auto 4 via a website you could access called leftovervacations.com. Now, what is leftovervacations.com? The clue's in the title. It's basically holidays nobody wants at bargain prices. So in that piece of media, this area was described as a swamp full of right-wing nut jobs and deadly mosquito-borne diseases is what makes, this area now known as Leonida great. So it's interesting that, I mean, of course, this area existed in real life. Of course, it would exist in a reference, but whether they had plans at that stage to do more with it, I don't know. Like you talked about, it occupies quite a large landmass to the south there. The people are speculating it's going to cut through Vicedale County and Kelly County. So yes, it's a huge landmass.
Well, as you mentioned there, I think those things do tie up to the screenshots that we've got. So there's 4 of these in total. The first features 2 men and a woman sitting on a Airgator airboat 09, which is based on the real life Diamondback airboats. They pretty much look the same. Now, one of these guys has their foot on an alligator, and there's also a dead bobcat that they have on the boat with them. All of these people are holding weapons, so I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that everything here points to some kind of hunting.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it just feels like what this region will be for. And I guess the interesting thing will be, there's a couple of ways they can make it interesting. I guess one is to have almost like gangs who live in this area you have to either align yourself with or fight against, and the suggestion that they're heavily armed would make that quite an interesting mission or set of missions. And or is it a very explicit set of hunting missions where the screenshots are basically mangroves, alligators, and people with guns, or people rustling, what looks like rustling or taking alligators. So, does that make sense to you as a kind of, I guess, like a core mission that might become a side mission?
Yeah, I think that's almost certainly what we're going to have here. I mean, is there going to be a hunting activity in GTA 6? I would say yes. Like, it was pretty well realized in Red Dead 2. So there's bound to be some kind of hunting activity. I guess the question is, if it's part of the game as a side mission or an activity or something like that, what would you do with the things that you then catch or kill? Because in Red Dead, you can turn them into hats and coats and things because it made sense for the time. But in modern day Miami, you're not going to be wandering around with maybe you're going to get an alligator handbag out of it, possibly. But I don't know what you're going to do with, you've skinned the bobcat. I don't see you wearing a hat made out of bobcat fur around the streets of Miami.
It feels unlikely, and like how many alligator handbags can one have? Which is, I suppose, a
One
rhetorical
none,
question.
I guess.
Yeah, one or none, probably. I don't know how many Jason is planning to carry around with him, for example.
No.
I mean, look, his choices are his own, but it just feels unlikely. Equally, like I've again, this is an aside. I've eaten alligator in the past. I didn't find it, kill it, and eat it because I was living savage in the mangroves. It was just amazingly, it was at an event for the original release of Metal Gear Solid 3, where they thought it was a good idea to feed us exotic meats.
Because that game is all about finding things in the jungle and eating them.
Yeah, but he's like, a soldier in the 1960s in a jungle having to eat to live, where Jason and Lucia, I suspect, will be able to go to a burger shop, which would be a much easier way to eat and not order, So like you say, long story short, I don't think there's a utility reason that I know of for these alligators to be captured or shipped, unless it somehow relates to it's a front for the drugs or for something else. But
an alligator full of drugs, stuff him full of drugs.
You thought it was for handbags.
Drag him through the water. No one's going to stop you dragging an alligator behind your boat. That's genius. Oh, I like that. I guess what all of this leads to is the fact that hunting itself is allowed in the Everglades / wetlands when we get to GTA 6. I guess we got a bit more on that later, so I'll leave that as an open question for now. A couple of other things to discuss in this screenshot before we move on. There's a can of Yuckton chewing tobacco on the deck here and a couple of bottles of Patriot beer, which very much, I think, fits in with that theme that you described earlier of this kind of location. And all three of these people are covered in mud and have more evidence of sunburn on various parts of their bodies, which is interesting that we're seeing even more of that as you look at more and more of these screenshots, that kind of sunburn effect does seem to be quite prominent throughout all of these. Will we get it as an actual mechanic in the game? Who knows? And finally, one little thing here is the woman, if you zoom in to her tattoos, one of them says masturbator as a tattoo across her chest, which is clever because obviously if you write that in a different way, it means something else, but she can be a masturbator, as in she's great at pulling out bait for the crocodiles.
A master of baiting.
Or alligators, I should say.
Yes.
The second shot is this one here, which is more of an environmental one, showing what I assume is the very edge of the southern point of the map before you reach the Florida Keys. I've only assumed that because it's, water is in front of all of these buildings. The water tower that you can see in the middle of this shot identifies this place as Watson Bay, and it seems to have a big variety of restaurants and bars. This is where people are going to go to hang out. I guess the most impressive thing here is this screenshot to me feels really alive. Like there's so many different things going on. There's loads of cars, there's loads of traffic, there's loads of people in different realistic poses, like just hanging around on the side of buildings, sitting down, having lunch, doing all those kind of things. There's a lot going on. There's people fishing down in the water there. We can also see down in that water some tidal marks on the stilts that go into the water, suggesting again changing water levels. Is this going to be a feature in the game? Is the tide going to go up and down in line with the moon? Is it going to flood? Who knows? But while we're talking about water, I guess now might be a good time to talk about that rumor that has somehow spiraled across at least the social media channels, that Rockstar is reportedly spending $200 to $300 million on next level water physics for Grand Theft Auto 6. Apparently, there's a team of at least 20 engineers working on dynamic hurricanes, flooding and tides, and surfing mechanics. Now, I know we talked about this briefly when we were recording last week's episode, Dan, and you had some thoughts.
Well, my thoughts are, well, first of all, this, I say rumor, I'd even use the word rumor with quotation marks around it. It's a social post.
Statement.
Yeah, from the GTA 6 updates X account, which basically just says, And it's not there's no sourcing here that I'm seeing. I know aggregators and accounts often take from other people, but I haven't seen this attributed absolutely anywhere else.
No.
And there's no description of why any of this. It just sounds like a made up thing, right? And it says Rockstar is reportedly spending 200 to 300 million on next level water physics for Grand Theft Auto 6. A team of 20 engineers is said to be working on dynamic hurricanes, flooding and tides, surfing mechanics. So there's a lot to unpick there. As I say, the most prominent of them being, is this just completely made up? And are you aware of any other sourcing for this beyond this post?
No, and this is the main problem. I mean, I say the main problem. The problem with this whole thing is it feels like that number has come from seemingly nowhere. So somebody, it might not even be this account, but somebody somewhere has plucked this out of the air and then written it down. And then it's been posted enough times for, I imagine, some people to think, oh, well, that's a real thing that's happened. Whereas, in fact, I don't think there's any evidence for that kind of money to be spent on water physics. There's also no real evidence that hurricanes, flooding and tides and surfing even exists in the game. So, I mean, I know we've talked about it quite a lot, and I think flooding and tides could be in there and is reasonably likely. Maybe dynamic hurricanes, or at least dynamic weather effects.
Yes.
Does that extend to hurricanes? Don't know. Might be difficult. And then surfing mechanics, sure, surfing could be in the game. There's waves in Miami. But that feels like it's just another mini game or control scheme that you have to set up. Surfing's never been in a GTA game before. It would be cool, but these kind of things feel more like a wish list attached to an imaginary number that makes all of this feel a bit washy.
Yeah, it feels like an excuse to create an engagement bait post, really. I do believe that all of this is plausible. It could happen, is in terms of those mechanics. Surfing's a fun one because there's never been many, for example, surfing video games, because it's quite a difficult sport to make fun in a video game.
Yeah.
And I go back all the way back to probably what was the world's first surfing video game, where I remember there was a game on the ZX Spectrum. You may not. This is
This is going to be the pinnacle of fun gaming.
Well, this will go back to probably it was a home computer that probably a lot of people listening haven't even heard of. But the original ZX Spectrum 48K had rubber keys, and it was possible that basically some boffins or mad people created a controller for that, where you literally overlaid a surfboard on the rubber keys.
Okay.
And massaged your fingers over the keys to replicate
surfing.
I
thought you were going to stand on it.
No.
like that skateboard they made for that skateboarding
Spectrums
game.
Weren't that strong. So it was just like the keyboard you've got in front of you, James, that people can't see, like an Apple keyboard.
Right.
Just a peripheral that laid on top of it. You could apply pressure and surf. Unsurprisingly, given what ZX Spectrum physics for waves and stuff looked like, it was just a complete cosmetic farce. And even jumping forward in time to, I believe there was like a Kelly Slater surfing game. It's just a really difficult thing. It's not like skateboarding games where you can go, you're in this part, and this part, and this city, and this skyscraper. You're on the sea. And like the wave's big, or it's small, or it's green, or it's blue. It's just a difficult thing to do. Now, within the context of GTA, sure, fun minigame. Yeah. Maybe even a fun mission. But like, we're off. We're really offshore, so to speak. And the thing that's more breathtaking about all of this is to pluck out of the air this figure of $200 to $300 million just on developing water physics. Now, like, nobody knows the actual cost of GTA 6 production, and there are wild rumors. And I say wild rumors. I've reported on this in the newsletter a few times. There's a venture capital firm who keeps citing a cost of $1 billion like it's fact. I don't know where they're getting that from.
More expensive than the world's biggest skyscraper.
Yeah, and more expensive than like any game ever has ever been.
Oh, than anything, yeah.
Yeah, and like 1 billion is that. 2 billion, which is another rumor you can read. What? 2 billion? Like, I actually think that we've talked about this on the show. They would make that money back, and they could spend that much. It's just preposterous. And even if it was 2 billion, right? Even if it was 2 billion, spending 200 to 300 million on water would mean 10 to 15%, or almost up to 25% of the game's entire budget is on water physics.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, and also that's not how game development works. They don't go, okay, we're segregating this into water physics development team over here, vehicle car team over here, NPC team over. Like, it's just all of those departments work together to make the game. They don't just have a separate, oh, sorry, water guys, you've gone over your 100 million. We have to stop developing the water now. That's just not how it works. It's not how it would ever be reported anywhere.
It's wild. Imagine that, though, and a producer has to go over to the vehicle refueling team and go, bad news, guys, the water budget's spiraling out of control. We just can't afford to fund the vehicle refueling, which I personally would be a message I'd want to deliver.
Oh, yeah, I can't imagine that message ever being delivered. Because if you're going to keep one thing in this game, it is water refueling and the special edition crocodile. So
yes,
got to save some of that money somewhere.
It's a wild thing. It's got no provenance. Unless someone out in the comments can stand this up and say, oh, it came from here and it's been translated and this. I haven't seen it anywhere. And the numbers quoted are pretty barking.
Yeah, let's put the big debunked stamp on it. There you go. Maybe there'll be an animation on screen that says debunked. Nathan. Maybe there would be. Let's see. Okay, quickly back to the screenshot then, because there's even more little things. Oh, I see what I've done there. That's good. To talk about here. This is the screenshot with the infamous child. If you take a look on the right-hand side of the screenshot, zoom in, there's a bench with 3 people, I think, sitting on it. 2 of those people look about the same size. One of the other is smaller than the other 2. Now,
Yes.
I don't know what we think about this. I don't know how we're going to navigate our way around this, but we've discussed children being in the game before, and there's many ways that this could not be a child. I think we talked about, like, it could be just someone who's not that tall, or it could be a woman. It could be a child, but I think, as we'll probably get onto, the implications of the being children in this world of just like on this level, who are like NPCs roaming around just general areas, feels like it causes far too many problems than it fixes.
Yeah, wow. Where to begin with this one? I guess just to describe what you can see, and hopefully it's on screen as we talk. It looks a bit like, to me, there's 3 people sat down across a table. You can see the back of what looks like an older woman. It could be like a grandmother with grey hair, I would say.
Okay, yeah.
And next to that, well, and then opposite that woman with grey hair is what looks like an older man.
With a cap on?
With what, like a flat cap or something, right?
Yep.
So they look like 2 grandparents. And what stood next to them is a smaller person, considerably smaller, like I would say half to 3/4 of the size, with short hair, short brown hair, wearing a t-shirt, and looks like shorts. You can see their legs. And what could be looking at a laptop or a tablet.
Yeah.
Now, my view of that would then be, like happens in real world all the time, it's 2 grandparents looking after a child on behalf of some parents. There's some grandparents out with a kid. The point is more, OMG, children loose.
Loose.
In the universe.
They've set them free.
And like we said, like we talked about this a lot off air, do children exist in the world of GTA? Well, like, of course, because otherwise no one would exist. Because how it works is people are born and they are children and they grow into adults.
Shut up.
It's wild. It's a wild theory. So unless the game's, as I said off air, unless the game's really, 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 really meta, and the characters only exist because they've been divined into life like the one above all in the Marvel comics or something, which is not true. Like, at one stage they all would have been kids, right?
Yes.
So kids clearly exist. It's just that the GTA universe doesn't let us sort of see them or interact with them. Because obviously, if you could do to the children what you can do to the other characters, even for Rockstar, that's a bumpy path they could never navigate. It's too wrong. It's too bad. It's a moral disaster. You just couldn't have it. So I guess the question is, first of all, is this a child? What do you think? Do you think it looks like a child in this picture?
It could be. Yes, you could argue that it is, but then, like, why? I guess would be the next question. Why, out of all the screenshots, like, this isn't a mistake. They haven't just gone, do a screenshot. Oh no, the child NPC has slipped in there. Maybe no one will notice. And then they're not evident in any other screenshots or any of the trailers or anything like that. So then why would this be in here? Or is it just like not a child? And I guess by child, we're talking like under 18, which would be the UK equivalent of a child. And the US, I guess, is 21. But then, so we have had children, I guess, in GTA universe before, like Jimmy, Michael's son, was like around 20.
Yeah.
And that was fine, or fine-ish. But you never got to interact with Jimmy outside of a cutscene or a mission beat. So he wasn't wandering
protected
around
within cutscene bubbles, really.
And he had no friends, weirdly.
Yeah, you wouldn't bump into him in town or something. And I guess this is the point of all of this, is like, it's just a big thing just to show someone who could be a child in a GTA image feels quite remarkable. It does look like a child to me. It could equally be a very small man or woman of a certain age, but it just, the fact that it's what looks like two grandparents with a small person looking at a laptop screen looks like it's like a daycare thing, like they're looking after the child and having a nice time out at the river. You're right, and I think then to go further, there is no universe in which they're going to let children walk freely around the GTA world.
No, because that means then you have to block some of the actions you might take on other NPCs if you are out on a rampage from anything happening to those children. Like, you can't go around. You might be able to hit someone with a baseball bat just walking along the street, but you can't open up that option to, you know, if this child, let's say it's a child, looks to be between, shall we say, 12 and 18? Somewhere in that, like, whatever, maybe?
Yeah, maybe even, like, I mean, honestly, maybe even younger, could be 10.
Well, you can't be going around hitting them with baseball bats. Imagine the headlines.
No. Rockstar could not survive that. If you look at really how much heat they got for Hot Coffee, which looking back was an exceedingly tame sex mini game, right? I mean, all right, maybe you feel differently, but in the context of the modern internet, it's very tame, right? And this would not be tame. It would be shocking. There's no way Rockstar would countenance it. Literally no way. So then, like you said, the question becomes, why feature what might be a child? Is there a chance it's an accident, or it's an accident, like, did one of the artists go, I'm going to put a homage to my family, for example, or my grandparents, or, you know, that level of Easter egg that they thought no one would notice. But that seems naive, because there's people like us who sit there zooming in on everything, talking about everything. So you would think that somewhere in that sort of triage process of checking, someone would have said, yeah, lovely idea, but no, we can't, because some maniacs will talk about it.
Yeah. And here are the maniacs talking about it right now. And
so again, unless they're protected in a cutscene, is it like you say, like with Jimmy, it's like a thing where you do see maybe it is, you know, this specific unit. You actually, maybe they're there for a reason because it is weird. They're there because they're somehow significant in a cutscene.
Sure.
But that's just what, you know, that's wilder than saying water physics is going to cost 300 million.
Yeah, and it just opens up too many options of, like, it makes it more confusing, I think, if you have them all in one area where they're just like, oh, this is the house where the kids, you know, are at playgroup or whatever, and you can just come and have lunch with them. But then you never see them again in the rest of the whole world even though the time is changing and, days are cycling. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. It breaks the reality of that world. So, I mean, I agree that the character model looks smaller than the other two character models that this person is sat next to. There's no way that I can see it being a child, or at least maybe it is here, but once the game comes out, that is not happening.
Yeah, I think that's where I am. I think my eyes tell me this is a child with its grandparents. That's the thing that my eyes tell me.
As a piece of scene setting, you think, or something?
Maybe as and this, like you said at the top, this shot is really about, oh my God, there's a lot going on. There's so much depth. There's so much detail. The area is so alive. It's part of the storytelling of that static of going, families come here and congregate. Mm-hmm. So do these. It says something about the demographics of the area. But as a thing, it just can't exist. It can't be a thing. There can't be children wandering around the streets. And like you said, then it gets weird if you go, children here, but not here. What's this rule? What's that rule? It's just really difficult to do. But at the same time, like, of course, children have to be a concept in the GTA universe or no one would exist.
Yeah.
It's all kept, safely tucked away.
All right, there are two more screenshots to look at, screenshots 3 and 4. I'm going to group these together because there's not a lot going on in screenshot 3 apart from more gators and a guy with a shotgun, which I would suggest isn't going to be the best way to kill an alligator, but each to their own. As an aside, as you had an aside earlier about eating alligators, I fed them once on a trip. I was out for Mafia 3, and we went to New Orleans, or New Orleans, depending on what part of the world you're from, and went out on a little alligator ride and fed them some food.
Oh, well, that saves me a lot of embarrassment because I've always wanted to ask about how you got your robot arm.
Well, they were baby alligators, and it turns out all they eat is marshmallows. That's not true. Obviously, they eat other things.
Yes.
But all we were feeding them were marshmallows because apparently they go nuts for them. And they did. So saw a lot of lovely alligators, which was fun. Anyway, back to the screenshots. What we can see in the fourth one here is a truck with 3 or 4 gators in the back. It's being pursued by 2 police vehicles, possibly a helicopter, which does allow us to loop back round to, is hunting legal in the Everglades / Grassrivers wetlands? And the answer in real life is no, it is not. So hunting is permitted exclusively in the Big Cypress Preserve, which in real life is way up north in the Everglades, like almost in line with Miami, but to the west of it. And it says that hunting has been a cherished tradition in this remote part of Florida for years, with local hunters playing a key role in its conservation. Today, you can still enjoy hunting, including archery, muzzle loading, and general gun seasons, targeting white-tailed deer, turkeys, and hogs. Just remember, alligator hunting is not allowed in the National Preserve, and the National Park Service and Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission work together to manage hunting in the area. So, I imagine this is going to feed into the game, and alligator hunting, definitely a no-no. So what we're seeing in this screenshot and the first screenshot, when they have clearly hunted the alligators, is some kind of illegal practice. Now, I guess that opens up the question of how this ties into the game, and is the hunting aspect of it going to be essentially an illegal activity that might bring you in some more money, but you have a risk of being caught and you have to go to these locations to sell your wares and essentially make a bit more money on the side? Maybe that's the kind of thing that this kind of stuff is going to be used for. But either way, the actual hunting and killing of alligators, big no-no.
Yeah, and this screenshot clearly shows some degree of pursuit. Like you can see there's definitely 2 cars with flashing lights. There's you can see the water splashing from the movement. So it's not a case of them parked. They're actually in motion. The helicopter in pursuit, do you think that's a police helicopter, or is it unclear? It
could be a police helicopter. It could also be some of the hunters. It could be a hunter helicopter. We've seen this type of helicopter in the trailer before, flying over the wetlands. So it could just be that. It could be a part of their loadout for going hunting.
Yeah, I'm going to say police, but not with great conviction.
Great.
Yeah, I'd have to look at police shoppers from previous GTA games side by side. Nathan, if that is a thing that stands up, show it. If not, don't, because I don't want to be made to look any more of a fool than I am. So, yeah. And or could it be, I wonder, like, again, a hint of a thing that's a mission? Like a thing that takes place for some reason, as part, like we say, a part of a bigger puzzle. There's a similar pursuit image when we talked about, is it Mount Caliga, where we see the cars going the opposite side of the road and they're being
with
pursued.
the motorbikes.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that is this mission, but there's sort of all of the screenshots, there's some that leap out as being very dynamic, as if they were captured mid-flow. Is that significant or not? I don't know. We've just spent 10 minutes talking about a child watching YouTube videos with his grandparents, so I don't know.
Well, what is significant in real life, and this is great, is that there is actually a nuisance alligator hotline that you can call if you're having trouble with alligators, which is 866 FWC Gator. People with concerns about alligators should call FWC's toll-free nuisance alligator hotline at 866 392 4286. When someone concerned about an alligator calls the nuisance alligator hotline, FWC will dispatch a contracted nuisance alligator trapper to solve the situation, which relates to the bits that we see in the trailer of the man coming to someone's house to get the alligator out of a pool. Is there going to be a GTA 6 phone number that is the alligator hotline? I would say probably, almost certainly. Like, there's all the different phone numbers that you can ring up of like all of the restaurants and then sometimes cheat codes. I think the alligator hotline is going to be one of those things that you can just ring and then someone will turn up to be like, I'm here to help with your alligator problem. And then the only other thing I want to touch on in this screenshot is there are some pink birds here off to the right-hand side of part of the chase. Do you know what these are? And are you going to say they're flamingos?
I was, but I feel like that's going to be a mistake.
Well, it's probably because you've read further down these notes. I don't think they are. I think these are rosette spoonbills, which are found in South Florida coast and the Florida Keys north to Tampa. And they have populations in northeastern Florida and in the eastern coast of Texas down to Mexico. In the Florida Bay, 200 plus breeding pairs nest on Sandy Key, Turn Key, and Joe Key, plus some of the other islands, from November through to March. So I think this is one of those animals. They're basically the same as flamingos, but they're not. And then off to the left-hand side here, we can see a couple more little creatures on the marshland or the mud, which I'm going to say are North American river otters. You might argue that they are marsh rabbits, which is a swamp-hopping bunny that swims to escape danger. But I think, much like the child, this is open to debate. River otter or marsh rabbit, which side of the coin are you falling on?
River otter or marsh rabbit? Given that I don't think I could pick either out of a lineup if they were dangled in front of me.
Well, they look like this screenshot, but you can only see the back of them. That's the problem.
Imagine that my phone line is cut off. Dan, are you there? That's the kind of analysis people have come for. I don't know.
Great.
My phone is actually reconnected because I can leave with one final bit of trivia. Did you realise or did you know that the Everglades were apparently originally planned for Grand Theft Auto Vice City?
I have known that fact for about 10 seconds.
Well, there we go, and let me expand on it. So there was what they call LOD texture files left in GTA Vice City, which showed an area to the west of Escobar International Airport, sort of implying that the Everglades was meant to be there. And it showed an image of a sawgrass prairie, which is like a dominant grass through much of the Everglade region. And the image was called LOD Everglades 2. So there was like literally called the Everglades at that stage. To look at the actual screens, they're very PS2.
Yes, very Vice City.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into them. But there were some comments from people who worked on the game about whether this was meant to be a thing. So it says, Rockstar North map designer Nick Taylor commented on his website about his work during the development of Vice City, including the removed section of the Everglades. And he said, I worked on Vice City as a map artist. The areas I created were Ocean Drive, Prawn Island, Golf Course Airport, blah, 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 blah. And I did a small Everglades section that didn't make it into the final game. And then they interviewed Aaron Garbett, who was the game's art director for the 10th anniversary of GTA Vice City. And he did say out loud, we had talked about doing the Everglades. I think we even roughed some of it in. That would have been great. Basically, expanding out of the city into the surroundings would be good. You get such good contrasts. But that was something that we devoted a lot of energy to in the later games. So yeah, it was interesting to see. It's always been an idea of theirs. And I wonder if there's gameplay concepts they'd always had that finally they're going to get to bring to life.
And hopefully they'll get to bring, well, they are bringing that to life. How many years later? 24 years later. Yes. Here we are.
Yes.
All right, just to wrap things up for this week, we should talk about the prison guard debate because I mentioned it at the top of the show. Do you want to describe what this is, Dan? We did talk about it off air briefly at the end of last week's episode.
So it's I don't want to miscredit this, or whether this person even wants to be credited. Again, a social account or poster had put up a string of 4 images saying that in the trailer where Jason goes into the prison, and the prison card behind the counter says, don't I know you from somewhere?
I've seen you here before.
And we were like speculating on, how could he know him? Has he been a prisoner before? Blah, blah, blah. Now, what this person is speculating is, well, the reason he knows him is revealed within the trailers because he is, in fact, the guy who, I think like a masked Jason, holds up with a gun in one of the flash scenes.
You stay.
And then there's like an image zoomed in where you go, it's very low res, but maybe because that person is wearing spectacles and so is this person. But that in itself is not really very compelling, is it?
No, because as you follow that thread, it goes on to say, I've put these 2 images side by side, look how similar they are. And then it says, but I've added glasses and some more hair to this other one to make it look the same, which is, you could do to anyone, not anyone. You could do to a lot of people and go, look, they're basically the same person now. So I don't think this holds up for other reasons as well that I think that we talked about between ourselves. But there's a clear shot of the left hand, of the person's left hand, in both of these images. In one of them, in the one where they're robbing the bank, he has a massive gold ring on his finger. And then in the prison scene, he does not have that gold ring anymore. And if the timelines that we think are correct, the shot of them robbing the bank takes place after they go, he goes and gets Lucia out of prison, because they're together, Jason and Lucia, in this robbery scene.
Yes.
And it feels like quite a significant robbery, like that they're armed, they're robbing a big bank. I think it's the same bit where we see them all run out onto the streets with the bags, and then the police are all there waiting for them. And later on we see Lucia driving away in what I think is a bus with a grenade launcher, firing them at all of the police cars. So unless all of that leads to her ending up being in prison, the timelines here don't work.
Yeah, exactly. And like that scene, that heist, looks really high scale. It's escalated, right?
Yeah.
If that was the reason she ended up in prison, either she hasn't aged in 40 years, and neither has Jason, which is clearly not true.
Yeah.
Or how would someone suddenly go, well, I know you fired the grenade at that police car and you were in that massive heist, but we're going to let you out after 6 months on parole.
On a ankle tag.
With an ankle tag, all right?
Doesn't work.
Not suspicious at all. So unless we are fundamentally misunderstanding this, the chronology doesn't work as far as our understanding is.
No, because he wouldn't have been able to say, I know you from somewhere, because that he wouldn't have, even if this is the same person, he wouldn't have met him yet.
Because it's more logical to say Jason going to the prison to meet Lucia and to get her out is earlier on in the chronology of the story.
Yeah, then them
and
robbing
then
a
they
load of
meet
stuff.
and come up with their plans and let's be so good together and all that sort of thing, hot together. Like, that's an escalation towards the bank heist, you would think,
Yes.
rather than it started with the bank heist and then it's just it doesn't make any sense.
No, the only way it makes sense is if it's a prequel thing. But as you say, then all of the actions that they take place, all of the actions that they do during this heist are too much to be let out on an ankle tag. And Jason then presumably doesn't get caught and is just wandering around into prisons to pick up someone that has been put in prison for doing a huge back. Like, it's a madness.
Yeah, and like, look, let's just say this. I would have won a lot more games of Guess Who if my Get Out card was getting a felt tip pen and drawing spectacles.
Yeah.
And I went, it's Mr. Green. No, it's not. He's got spectacles.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, then let's get the debunked stamp out again and stamp this on this one as well. All right, let's wrap up this week's episode right there. Thank you for all of your comments. Please keep getting in touch. If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment below. We do read them all. While you're there, why not hit the subscribe button? If you're listening on any of the other podcast services, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock or via email gtavIoclock@gmail.com. And if you would like a summary of all of these episodes, plus a few more little tidbits, you can sign up to the newsletter.
Yes, it's gamesradar.com newsletter. So dead easy to understand. Type that in. You need to select GTA 6 o'clock from the options that are there by pressing the subscribe button. Please do that. Every week I write a newsletter, we're actually working with one of our trusted contributors, a guy called Jordan Ollerman, who's written a lot about GTA. So we will be working together a lot to bring you a fabulous newsletter for free every week.
Thank you very much, everyone. Please do all of those things and come back next week for another episode of GTA 6 o'clock.